In the late 20th century, if you walked into a store with the green and white sign of Marks and Spencer, you weren't just entering a shop. You were stepping into a promise. A promise of quality, trust, durability, and fairness. For generations, families believed that if something came from Marks and Spencer, it would last. It would be stitched stronger, woven tighter, and made with pride. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The racks became fuller, yet the sole became thinner. The labels still carried the famous initials, but the meaning behind them felt different. This is the story of how a retail giant that once defined quality slowly drifted away from its own identity, and how, in chasing modern growth, it nearly lost the very foundation that made it great. Marks and Spencer began in 1884, founded by Michael Marks and later joined by Thomas Spencer. From humble beginnings in a Leeds market stall, the company built its empire on a revolutionary idea: provide high-quality goods at fair prices and treat customers with respect. The famous slogan, "Don't ask the price, it's a penny," symbolized transparency. As the decades passed, M&S became more than a retailer. It became a cultural institution in the United Kingdom. Its clothing was known for durability, its food for reliability. Its suppliers were long-term partners, many based domestically, sharing a commitment to craftsmanship. For much of the 20th century, Marks and Spencer was obsessed with quality control. It didn't just buy products, it engineered them. It worked directly with manufacturers, setting strict standards for fabric, stitching, and finishing. Garments were tested rigorously. If something didn't meet the mark, it didn't make it to the shelf. This wasn't marketing hype, it was operational discipline. Customers trusted M&S blindly. They didn't need flashy logos or influencer campaigns. The brand itself was the guarantee. By the 1980s and early 1990s, Marks and Spencer was at its peak. It was one of Britain's most profitable retailers. Expansion into international markets, including the United States, signaled ambition. Stores were large, orderly, and dependable. The company culture emphasized long-term thinking over quick wins. Employees felt pride. Suppliers felt loyalty. Customers felt certainty. But retail began to change. Globalization accelerated. Competitors emerged with new business models. Fast fashion brands could design, produce, and deliver clothing in weeks instead of months. Lower labor costs overseas meant cheaper garments flooded the market. Consumers, increasingly price-sensitive and trend-driven, began to shift. Instead of buying fewer high-quality pieces that lasted years, many shoppers wanted variety and novelty. This is where the turning point began. Marks and Spencer faced a dilemma: remain committed to its traditional model of controlled, slower production with higher costs, or adapt to the new globalized supply chain. The company chose adaptation, but adaptation came with trade-offs. Outsourcing increased. Long-standing domestic suppliers were replaced or pressured to cut costs. The tight-knit partnerships that once ensured consistent quality became more transactional. The focus gradually shifted from best possible product to competitive pricing and faster turnover. On spreadsheets, this made sense. Margins needed protection. Shareholders expected growth. But culturally, something subtle shifted. When cost becomes the primary driver, quality inevitably negotiates. At the same time, the brand's identity blurred. M&S had once stood clearly for timeless basics: reliable underwear, sturdy knitwear, dependable tailoring. As trends accelerated, the company tried to become fashionable, seasonal, and trend-responsive. But competing directly with nimble fashion brands required speed and creative risk-taking that wasn't in M&S's DNA. The result was confusion. Loyal customers felt alienated by sudden style changes, while younger shoppers saw the brand as outdated despite its attempts to modernize. International expansion compounded the challenge. Entering the American market was ambitious, but it required deep understanding of local consumer behavior. The U.S. retail environment was already crowded with powerful domestic players. Without a distinct, sharply communicated value proposition, M&S struggled to resonate. Expansion costs rose while returns lagged. Eventually, the company withdrew from several markets, signaling that its once unstoppable momentum had slowed dramatically. Internally, leadership changes created further instability. Different CEOs brought different visions. Some pushed aggressive restructuring. Others emphasized brand reinvention. Frequent strategic pivots can energize a company, but they can also fracture it. Employees who once operated under a clear mission now faced shifting priorities. Was M&S a premium quality retailer, a mid-market competitor, a fashion-forward innovator? The lack of clarity diluted confidence. Perhaps the most symbolic loss was the erosion of perceived quality. Customers began noticing thinner fabrics, inconsistent sizing, and garments that didn't last as long as they once did. Whether these perceptions were entirely accurate or partially influenced by nostalgia, the impact was real. Brand trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. When a company's reputation is built on reliability, even small compromises feel like betrayal. The food division of Marks & Spencer often remained stronger, known for premium ready meals and high standards. But even there, competition intensified. Supermarkets expanded their own premium ranges, often at lower prices. Differentiation became harder. In a world where nearly every retailer claimed quality, M&S's historic advantage seemed less exclusive. Technology also disrupted traditional retail. E-commerce rose rapidly. Consumers expected seamless online experiences. For years, Marks & Spencer struggled to adapt digitally. Website functionality, logistics, and inventory integration lagged behind more agile competitors. Retail is no longer just about what hangs on the rack. It's about data, personalization, and omni-channel efficiency. Delays in digital transformation cost the company valuable ground. Another critical factor was cultural complacency. Decades of dominance can create institutional inertia. When a company has been successful for so long, it may underestimate emerging threats. Competitors that start smaller often move faster, unburdened by legacy systems. M&S's scale, once its strength, became a structural weight. Yet to say that Marks & Spencer simply lost its soul would be too simplistic. The soul of a company is not a physical asset. It's a collective agreement about what matters most. For M&S, that agreement once centered on uncompromising quality and long-term relationships. When market pressures intensified, leadership faced a choice: protect the core even at the expense of short-term profits, or compromise strategically to remain competitive. They chose compromise. Many businesses do. Survival in retail is brutal, but compromise accumulates. One supplier change leads to another. One cost-cutting measure justifies the next. One design pivot blurs the brand slightly, then slightly more. Over time, the accumulation becomes identity drift. Customers sense it before executives fully recognize it. Loyalty weakens not with a single scandal, but with gradual disappointment. Financial performance reflected these struggles. Profit warnings emerged. Store closures followed. Restructuring plans became frequent headlines. Each announcement signaled that the company was still searching for stable footing. Analysts debated whether M&S could reclaim relevance in a market dominated by fast fashion giants and digital-first brands. And yet, resilience remains part of the story. Marks & Spencer has attempted reinvention multiple times. Investments in sustainability, supply chain transparency, and product innovation show awareness of modern consumer priorities. The company has collaborated with designers, refreshed store layouts, and streamlined operations. Some initiatives succeeded. Others fell short. Reinvention at this scale is complex. The deeper lesson, however, goes beyond one retailer. It speaks to the tension between heritage and evolution. Brands built on quality face unique risks in a hyper-competitive global economy. When price wars dominate headlines, maintaining premium standards requires courage. It may mean slower growth. It may mean resisting trends. It may mean educating consumers about value instead of racing to match competitors' discounts. In many ways, Marks & Spencer's journey mirrors broader changes in Western retail culture. The mid-20th century emphasized durability and long-term ownership. The late 20th and early 21st centuries prioritized speed, convenience, and affordability. As consumer expectations shifted, so did corporate strategies. The death of quality is not solely the fault of one company. It reflects systemic transformation. However, brands that once defined an era carry heavier expectations. When customers remember thicker sweaters and longer-lasting trousers, comparisons become inevitable. Nostalgia magnifies contrast. A garment that lasts 3 years today may still be decent, but if one lasted 10 years in the past, perception shifts dramatically. The American chapter of M&S is particularly instructive. Entering the United States required not only logistical adaptation but cultural storytelling. American consumers often respond strongly to clear brand narratives. Without successfully translating its British heritage into a compelling American identity, M&S struggled to build deep emotional connections. Retail success abroad demands more than replication. It requires reinvention rooted in local insight. Leadership stability eventually became central to recovery efforts. Clearer strategic focus, prioritizing core strengths rather than chasing every trend, has been part of recent efforts. Simplifying product ranges, improving fit consistency, and strengthening online infrastructure have all aimed to rebuild trust. Trust, once eroded, returns slowly. What does soul mean in corporate terms? It means knowing what you refuse to compromise. For Marks and Spencer, that once meant never releasing a product below a certain standard. It meant nurturing suppliers as partners rather than interchangeable vendors. It meant valuing steady reliability over headline-grabbing expansion. When those principles diluted, the brand felt different. But a soul can be rediscovered. Companies evolve. Markets cycle. Consumer fatigue with disposable fashion has grown in recent years. Sustainability concerns have pushed quality back into conversation. If durability becomes fashionable again, brands with historic credibility have an opportunity, if they genuinely recommit. The story of Marks and Spencer is not just decline, it is transformation under pressure. It illustrates how even giants are vulnerable when identity becomes negotiable. It warns that scaling globally without protecting foundational values carries risk. And it reminds entrepreneurs that growth without clarity can hollow out what once made a business special. For viewers and aspiring business leaders, the lesson is powerful. Protect your core. Innovation is necessary, but it must orbit around a stable center. If your reputation is built on quality, defend it fiercely. If your brand stands for trust, treat that trust as sacred capital. Because once customers begin to doubt, rebuilding belief is exponentially harder than maintaining it. Marks and Spencer's journey continues. Retail remains unforgiving. But history shows that brands rooted in genuine value can recover if they realign with their original purpose. Whether M&S fully regains its former stature depends on its willingness to prioritize substance over speed, clarity over confusion, and long-term loyalty over short-term optics. In the end, the death of quality is rarely sudden. It is gradual, almost invisible, masked by quarterly reports and marketing campaigns. But when customers feel it, they respond quietly, by shopping elsewhere. And that quiet response can shake even the most established institutions. If you found this deep dive valuable and want more powerful business stories that reveal the real lessons behind success and failure, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, comment your thoughts below, and share it with others who want to understand how great brands rise and how they fall.